Welcome to the Relationship Series podcast. My name is Ankush Jain, and each episode I'll be speaking to a different state of mind expert on the subject of relationships. Enjoy. Welcome to episode 42 of the Relationship Series. This episode, I'm really pleased to be joined by a wonderful couple who've been married for 38 years. They are Keith Blevens and Valda Munroe. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith and Valda are really the just wonderful couple and an incredible state of mind experts. I've had some amazing world-class experts on the show already, but I'd say Keith and Valda are really, really up there in terms of their knowledge and expertise. Not only have they worked with couples, individuals, struggling couples, corporations, but they've often coached and mentored many of the people that have already been on this show. So I'm really, really happy to have them here and them sharing their wisdom with us. Keith is this is his sneaky second outing on the show. He was also on episode 4, which you can check out, but this time he's joined by his lovely wife Valda. But if you guys want to introduce yourselves and just give us maybe a little bit more bit of background in terms of how did you get into being these, I guess, kind of world experts on state of mind.
Well, we've been very fortunate in our lifetime to meet people. In particular, I would say Sydney Banks, but around that encounter many years ago now, over 38 years ago, we've been very fortunate. I was trained as a psychologist and have a license in psychology, doctoral level, but what we've learned really went way beyond psychology, and has created a whole new science and a new development and a new relationship for us. I mean, we've been very fortunate, and we've often said without what we've learned, we just couldn't be where we are today. So we're lucky to be here, and we're lucky to be here as a couple, and we're looking forward to sharing some thoughts with your audience. Anything you want to say, dear?
I think that I also agree that we were lucky. I feel pretty sure that we would be divorced if we hadn't have met Sydney Banks and learned from him, because I could see my habits. I would get mad at someone and make a list, and when the list got long enough, I would have to then break up with the person because it just seemed too interminable to carry on, because I had this large list of things they had done wrong. So it was really nice to find out how not to do that, how to, I feel like I've gotten to be in love for 38 years, which I love being in love. So that's just a complete and total thrill. And I guess we'll just talk a little bit about our relationship.
Okay.
Well, Valda, does that mean you no longer make a list, or do you still make a list about Keith but just don't pay as much attention to it?
I don't even really make a list. I'm able to, I understand what's going on with me, and I understand that I'm living in the feeling of my thinking moment to moment, and that doesn't sound like a very big sentence, but it's a huge sentence. And so it isn't that he doesn't do things that I don't like, because he definitely does. But I know that I'm going to, first and foremost, I'm going to be feeling my thinking in the moment about that. So I want to have that factored into what's going on, and when I remember that, it's like, oh yeah, let's remember I'm thinking here, and then I can see what if I'm really upset, if I'm thinking he has some sort of power to dictate how I'm going to feel, which he doesn't really, and there's really nothing that you can't talk about in an upset way that you can't talk about in a settle down way, and so now I can go forward to him about I don't know, what has he done lately? I'm trying to think. One of my bigger, we're very, really fortunate people. We've had really good lives, and so we don't have real big bad problems because we've both been pretty mentally healthy all of our lives, and then had the fortune of meeting Sydney Banks. So our problems are kind of weird and small, but they're still our problems. And but I just don't keep a list. I know I can settle back down again, and I can go forward and say in a way that creates a good conversation to say, oh, you know what, Keith, I need to talk to you about something. And I'll usually see how he's doing. If he's really exhausted, I won't pick that time. And I'll say, you know, I need to talk to you about something. If you're too tired right now, let me know, and we'll take it up another time. And I listen to him. If he says, I'm really tired, let's take it up another time, I put it aside and take it up another time. And but then I can say, you know, there's something I need to say about your driving. And so then I say, are you still okay? And then, because this is like the most, I don't know, this is the hardest conversation sort of for us, talking about his driving. But then we can have a conversation about it where we don't get mad at each other. And so I know that I can do that. So I don't have to keep the list anymore. And I love that I don't have all that resentment. I don't walk around with resentment towards him because I actually love the guy.
And I think for me, you know, there's so many things that couches something that's really an ongoing dynamic of something can happen that's some mental disturbance of some sort of or another, of mine or yours or whatever in our lives, and it's not a deal breaker. It's something we can reflect on and think through and come back to and keep coming back to and keep, you know, there's a kind of an ongoing resilience built into that understanding that allows you to not have to keep a list, because when you understand where your feelings are coming from, you get reflection, you get honesty, you get ability to get out of your own defensiveness or own territory where you feel like you're right and the other person's wrong. You just get a whole host of things that ordinarily kind of bind things up and shut things down and keep people at loggerheads. You keep dissolving that and dissolving it, and it leads to a dynamic that's just incredible. And your love doesn't really then get bruised or bent or spindled or mutilated by those misunderstandings. The misunderstandings are not really capable of robbing you of your respect for each other. It's been amazing.
It sounds like you have a lot of love for each other. You have a lot of mutual respect. You know, you pick your times to have conversations, and like many of the people on the show, you talk about being aware of your own thinking in your relationship. And is that it? I mean, is that the secret to being married for nearly 4 decades? Because it's quite unusual to be well, it's unusual to be married for 4 decades. It's even more unusual to be happily married for that amount of time.
But people ask us if we're newlyweds.
Yeah.
Because we still enjoy each other so much and have so much fun together. And then some of our really good friends, the same thing is true about them too. I happened to mention that one day in their presence, and they laughed and they said and they've been married just about as long as we have too, and they've learned along with us what we've learned about our psychological health or our state of mind, and people asked them too, and I thought that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think there's a lot to that. The fact that you are living in the feeling of your thinking moment to moment. There's an incredible secret there, layers upon layers upon layers. But I think it is that simple, and yet that deep simultaneously. So it's not a trite saying or a trite recommendation, but it's an apt description of something that will keep me tracking what I need to be tracking, and keep simultaneously, I think, helps you track what you need to be tracking, and that tends to work out our mutual welfare.
You talk about living in the feeling of your thinking, and I know, because we've had a number of conversations about this, so there is a lot of depth to that statement. But if someone's very new to this, or listening to these principles behind state of mind for the first time, it might be easy to miss. Could you give us an example of how knowing that or understanding that paradigm helps in the context of your relationship?
For me, I didn't, for the first 26 years of my life, I didn't really know that. And I would sometimes see that. There's something about knowing that thought is all that you can't have a psychological experience if you don't have a thought about something. You have to think about it to have an experience of it, or to have a state of mind about it. And so it somehow gets me straightened up in the right direction to know that my feeling is coming from thought in the moment. Now, if I were to say, somebody were to ask me, do you think that your feelings have, or your state of mind has anything to do with your thinking in the moment? I would have to say yes. And I would want to say, no, I don't think my state of mind has anything to do with my thinking in the moment. There's something that's so unbelievably, powerfully important, but not all that obvious when we think that our state of mind is coming from circumstances or the past. And so to get that switched around and have insights about that matter to you, that you have moments of, that you see what's going on. I would have moments of thinking that it would be like, oh, I didn't know I had this thinking going on, but here it is. I see it. It's something from my past, from 10 years ago. I know when it happened. It's not happening anymore. And I can, it's like, and I'm thinking about it, which is interesting enough because I didn't really plan to think about it. And I thought, oh, I have repetitive thinking that I don't even know is going on. And it's creating a state of mind because I have a tendency to get mad about things. And so I would be really mad about something that had happened 10 years ago. And I realized all of this is happening in my thought. It's clearly not happening to me anymore. I don't even know where the people who were involved are anymore. And so I saw my thinking really deeply. And I realized, wow, it's a bigger player than I had understood that it was. Because what I was feeling was my thinking in the moment about something that had happened to me in the past. But I was just as mad as I had been when it happened to me in the past. Mm. And I thought, this is not even good logical thinking here. So I got to learn through insight about that for myself. And I thought, oh, there's more going on. And so it's very helpful for me, for my state of mind, not to get fooled by that circumstances are creating my state of mind. Circumstances are there. Things happen. We have our lives. We have our families. We have our work. We have friends. Things happen to us. Some of them are easy. Some of them are challenging. We're just like everybody else. But it's going to be the way I think about it in the moment. It's going to be what I experience. And in learning about this, it's been fascinating to see. I used to feel like I controlled my thinking, and then I thought at some point I have an insight, and it's like, well, I don't even know what I'm going to think next. And then I thought, I don't know. Nobody knows what they're going to think next. And I thought, well, that's not a big point in favor of control. And then I thought, well, there's times I think about things that I don't want to be thinking about and wish I could quit, but I can't quit thinking about them. I thought, well, there's another one that's not very, a good point about control. And then there's things I need to think about that I can't seem to make myself think about. And then there's times when I don't even know what I've been thinking for days. So I thought, oh, this is not about control. I had this wrong. And so the idea of understanding where my state of mind was coming from moment to moment, and it was coming from thought in the moment, and that correlation would always be true. It was like I was never going to be able to think hate and feel love in the same moment, but neither could anybody else. And so these were things that were truths about our state of mind. So there's a lot that can get unraveled. And so I don't try to control my thinking. I don't try to do a particular type of thinking. But I do know the most important thing is for me to remember how this is coming about in me, how it is that I have this state of mind that I have, and that it's coming from my thinking. So it completely helps in a relationship, because there's just little things like, why did you leave that bowl out? Why did you leave that stuff in the car? I don't know. Why didn't you call me when you said you were going to? And used to I would get upset, but now it's like I know the way that I think about it, it's going to matter to me, and it's going to matter to the relationship.
I think you're highlighting something that I'm just realizing is like there's a single law here. There's something that's absolutely true that we're sharing. We've said it several times, but that thinking is thought as a power is fundamental to all experience, 100%. It's an element of all feeling, positive and negative, all experience, all state of mind, all states of feeling. Thought is a fact. And if you have that in your bearing as a fact, even though you forget it as a fact and you think it's not at play, you've got something to, you've got a safety net ultimately to kind of fall back into when you lose your way. And that's really been the heart of our change and our evolution and our resilience. That is very simple, but undeniable and powerful. And I think that's really been
simple but profound.
Simple but profound. Yeah. In our work with couples, it's always a little bit matter of pride to me that people, the most common adjective in our work with people is simplicity and simple. They see a profound simplicity to our our work with them, and that's really what has made the cutting edge difference, and is attributable. It goes right to that as to why we're here now, and rather than been spindled and mutilated or separated or something else,
mm-hmm. or twice divorced.
Or twice divorced, yeah. So we can't understate it, but it is a fact. And having a psychological fact is really, even though it might be, most people would recognize it as, well, yeah, that's true, but they'll have exceptions. But a fact is a constant. It has no exceptions, no anomalies, nothing, no place to get around it, and it's predictive. Then you're going to learn, and you're going to have a chance to profit from what you go through and change your mind and learn things. Whereas before, if you think there's a way around that, or if you don't really get that as a fact, you're working with a kind of assumption that's flawed. And if you have a flawed assumption about reality and how it works, and how your experience works, you're going to have trouble. And so this plugs all the leaky holes, you might say, in your boat, and then you've got a chance to navigate and get somewhere without sinking. If you don't get those holes plugged, you're going to take on water, and you don't mean to. It's not good intentions. It's not that you deserve the trouble you get. It's a simple but innocent misunderstanding of where your feelings are actually coming from. Your state of mind is actually coming from. So that's made a world of difference for us, and we believe it would make a world of difference for anybody and everybody.
Well, we know that it does, because we worked with couples a lot.
Mm-hmm.
People come here. We live in La Conner, Washington, and people come here and we work with them for 4 days, and then we follow them for 3 months. And we have a large success rate for people who have already actually moved out and are living separated, to people, so in pretty dire situations. And they get rid of their list, and they start learning about their own thinking. It's like, this gives you a chance to be an expert in yourself rather than in what everybody else is doing. And so it's really nice to have a window into your own thinking, so you can learn about yourself. Like I got to learn about myself, not from analyzing, but this truth is very, I don't know, it kind of stops you in your tracks, and there's a lot of insight that will happen around this truth. And for me to get to look at, it's like, oh, look, I'm mad again. How about that? This is about me. And so I got to learn that about myself, such that whenever I got mad, I didn't immediately think, oh, this must be about Keith. It was like, oh, yeah, this is my habit. I have this tendency. I don't need to know where it came from or when it got started, but I've seen it in insight. And so I know that that's true about me, and that's Keith has a completely different habit. His state of mind a lot of times is that he would get hurt, which I didn't really know much about. I had a different response. And this is just, we're from different families. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make anybody better than anybody else. So we got to learn about ourselves in a way that, in an insightful way, that we didn't feel bad about ourselves, because we were actively learning, and it was actively helping us in our lives. And so now there's times when I'll get to going pretty fast, and Keith will say, and he has full permission to me, he'll say, do you think you could say that a little nicer, Valda? And I always say, well, of course I can, because I know who I am, and I know kind of where my habit goes, and then I realize, oh, yeah, I've got a little wound up here. And so it's that I can absolutely always say, oh, absolutely, I know I can. That's because I know that my state of mind is coming from thought in the moment, and it's not coming from the circumstance. Now, if the house is burning down, which has never happened to me, I can imagine that my voice could get raised or something like that. But most of I had a lot of urgency in my feelings, and now urgency alerts me to me, not to the circumstance.
You talked about, the house burning down, and I'm just thinking that, if someone's listening to this and, maybe their partner's got an annoying habit, maybe that you talk like you work with a lot of couples who are in pretty dire situations.
Yes.
And someone might be listening to what you are both saying and thinking, well, it sounds like it's really passive, right? Like it sounds like, well, my partner does so and so, and that's really annoying. And of course, I'm going to be thinking that that's normal. Anyone would be thinking that. And all you're pointing me to is to be passive and a pushover. So what would you say to someone like that? Because I know for a lot of people, it looks like that their thinking is at least in some way influenced by how their partner acts.
Well, it definitely doesn't turn out to be passive. I'm certainly not a pushover. No one would ever think that of me if they actually knew me. They actually worry about me being a little bit the other direction. It's that you get very clear about what's going on, and it gives you great strength. There's really nothing that I can't bring up, that anything about my husband that he does, I can bring it up. And I can stand my ground while I talk about it. It's like, look, I want to tell you how I think about this, and we both respectfully listen to the other one, even if it's not how he's doing something I don't like, I don't think is a good idea. I want him to quit. We can. It's like, well, where's the mad part, or that'd be for me. Why so mad for Keith? Why so hurt? You get to be able to come to things as a very whole, intact person and have a conversation about it. I mean, you don't know where the conversation's going to go, but you do know that you have a chance to speak your mind, speak it truthfully, honestly, and listen to the other person respectfully, and then you see what you come up with, because I don't really care how anybody else has ever done it, and we don't bring that into our relationship. Well, look, most people do it this way. Well, we don't really care how most people do it. We care about how we're going to go forward. So we listen to each other respectfully and see what new ground we can come to and new solution. Sometimes I like his thinking better than mine on something that we've got, some situation we've got to take action on. And I didn't know what it was, but once I listened to it, I thought, I like yours better than mine. Let's go with yours. Sometimes it's like, I'm not going to go with yours. We're going to have to find a compromise, or we're going to have to go with my way. And so nobody gets their way all the time. And if you're in a relationship and you're getting your way all the time, you want to know that you're being selfish, and that it's probably not a very good balance. So it's not, in no way is it passive. I can bring up anything I want to bring up. There's nothing passive about that. And I can have a very good, strong voice about it. There's nothing passive about that. And I have the possibility of listening very respectfully. There's nothing passive about that. So to me, it finally puts you in a real position of power in your life, and you can feel it and you know it.
Yeah, it's really the opposite of victimhood or passivity. It's constructive. It's moving forward. It's empowering. It's completely not that. So it gives you traction and an ability to think square in the face of any circumstance or difficulty in principle. Now, you might have your moments where you waver, but those are all grist for the mill and learning. So you're not really the passive victimhood of life has been, in a sense, well, in a real sense, it's been eliminated from our lives, which is amazing, really.
You said that this is ultimate simplicity, and it does sound very simple. But is it easy? Because I'm guessing there are a lot of people who might be listening to this to think, wow, they're so respectful of each other. I wish my wife or my husband was like that, or my partner. But is it easy to kind of implement this in your lives, or do you guys still have your moments?
We have a few moments, but not nearly. There's a definite evolutionary edge to what's happening with us that I can see. Oh, I'm better this year than I was last year. I'm doing better with this than I was last year, and that's been every year. So I can feel the evolution. I can tell that I don't lose sight of this. This is a very deep truth. So it's got power to it. It's like you don't know how to factor in that power, how powerful it is. A deep truth, something that's constant, something that's predictable, something that has no exceptions, is a very solid piece in this world. And it's powerful, and you don't really, it's not something you can think about and get your head around it. But if you people start having insights about this, where they start seeing their own thinking and they realize, well, this is part of the problem right here. I've happened upon something, and so it definitely gets easier, and we see that for our clients too. It's like if the more experience you have with something, let's say how many times I drive to the grocery store. Well, I get better and better at it all the time. I see new landmarks that I didn't know before, and it gets to where there's an evolution of it getting easier to do something you repetitively do. It's easy to lose sight of this, but after it's sort of counterintuitive in the beginting, but if you have some insight about it, it will intrigue you. It will naturally intrigue you, and you will get naturally interested in it, and you'll start to learn, and it's the power of the truth of it that makes it possible to change. It's not that I have a lot of willpower, because I don't. It's not that I'm doing this through accomplishment, because I'm not. But the truth is a powerful thing. It's something you don't know how to factor it in, but you will experience it as you go along and start to get some respect for it.
Does either of you have some stories or examples, hopefully funny? Embarrassing would be even better. We love those stories, but of how maybe you've seen life in a certain way, and because of what you teach and maybe pointing to your own thinking, where you've kind of done a U-turn or seen something different, which has been really helpful in your relationship.
I don't think of any. They don't seem very funny to me. So I can't think of a funny one. I know that Keith used to have a woodpile in a place that I didn't like it. Once again, our problems are not big, huge, serious problems, but our problems are our problems. And I didn't like it that he had the woodpile where it was. I had nicely asked him many times to move it. I had meanly asked him many times to move it, and I couldn't get anywhere with him. And so I would, it was going on, this is going on year after year after year. And I wouldn't think about it all the time, but when I did, I would think about what's the matter with Keith that he wants that woodpile there. There's a lot of other possibilities that would be a lot more attractive in our backyard than where he's got it. And so I tried all sorts of, things. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? I would if we're at a hardware store, I'd take him over to this nice-looking rack that you can stack the wood on. How about we get one of these? No change, no change, no change. So anyway, it's just an ongoing thing that I have as of yet to make a dent in with him. And so we're out on the patio out back, and I was happy to see him. I'm giving him a hug, and here's the thinking that's coming to me happens to be, oh, look, here's Keith. I love him so much. I can't believe I get to be married to him. He's one of the nicest people I know. This is so great that we get to be together. And now I'm just tall enough that I can see right over his shoulder, and I happen to see the woodpile over there. And so now I've been having these thoughts of, oh, look, Keith's home. I love him so much. It's so great to see him. I'm so fortunate. Now I was just filling myself with good feeling or a good state of mind. Not intentionally. That happened to be the thoughts that were coming to mind in the moment. And I was feeling fabulous. But then I happened to look over his shoulder and I see the wood pile. And it was like, oh, it just immediately changed. And it was like, there's that wood pile. I can't believe it's still there. What's the matter with him? Why is he so hard-headed? His mother tried to tell me he was stubborn. Why didn't I listen to her? And so now this is the thinking that's coming to me, and I'm mad and I'm very dissatisfied. And then I had an insight about myself, and I thought, wow, that was a fast change. I was like totally happy, great state of mind, and then just completely disgusted in the next second. And then it was just like, oh, this is about me. This isn't about Keith. There's still him, and there's still a wood pile, and I can certainly have any conversation I need to about that. But this was about me. I had a deeper experience of my own thinking in the moment, and that was, of course, I felt the way I did in the first instance, and of course I felt the way I did in the second instance. There would be no other option. Given the thinking I'm doing right now, of course I feel the way I do right here. And it's hard to get how unbelievably truthful and how unbelievably powerful that is to have some understanding about that and to have insights about that. And so then the insight that came to me in that moment was the only upset that I will ever feel for the rest of my life is my own upset thinking. And in that moment, I'd always kind of had a target on Keith, like the Target store target or a bullseye target.
Bullseye, yeah.
Bullseye target. And I'd always had one on him, and from time to time I would take aim at it and shoot, and it completely took the bullseye target off of him. And I looked up at him, and he's taller than I am, and I said, hey, I'm going to get to be on your side from here on out. And he said, haven't you been on my side? And I said, not like I'm getting ready to be.
Well, not when you were taking regular aim at the target.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't on your side then.
Yeah, right.
You were, you were enemy. Yeah, and I was trying.
I was target.
Yeah, and I wanted to try to
hit target.
Yeah, hit target to hopefully to change target.
Change target. Yeah,
to do it my way.
Right.
But so it was really and there was a real change. That was a really strong insight that I had that really impacted me, and I knew that upset meant to look at the way I was thinking in the moment. So this can become. At some point, it is no longer counterintuitive, and it becomes intuitive. There's times that he does things, and I'll start to get mad because I don't happen to like what he's doing or what he's saying or what he wants to do or what he wants me to do, whatever. And I will start to get mad, and then there's this. I now have this intuitive thing in me that's like, oh, it doesn't work that way. He's not a magician. He doesn't have the power to upset me and make me mad. And it's like, oh, okay, so I'm back to remembering I'm the thinker in this life. Not that I'm trying to control it, not that I put any energy in on what it's going to be next, because nobody knows what it's going to be next. But I can know that truth about life, and it can really help me to factor back into my equation about what is happening here, is that I'm going to be feeling, or I'll have the state of mind of my thinking moment to moment. There's just all sorts of things you can learn.
I think there are men across the world who are listening to this, who are thinking, right, what I need to do to stop my wife nagging me is send them to Keith and Valda so they can realize it's not me, it's her thinking.
Well, that might be their thinking about her thinking that we would help them with. This is where this dynamic gets unraveled, and you really see what's really going on. That will really help anybody.
Keith had a lot of thinking about this is the way people should do things. He came from a more conventional family. And so that was a big stopper in just a lot of things, is that, this is not the right way to do things. I mean, it's just little stuff, like a neighbor would get a new fence, and I would just be kind of silly about it. And I'd say, oh, they've got a new fence. I want to see it again. And all he has to do is drive around a block to go see it again. We live in a really small town, and there's no traffic either. And he just wouldn't want to do it. He wouldn't want to be lighthearted about things. And he would pull into the driveway rather than, I'd say, let's go look at it again, And it doesn't mean anything. I know it doesn't mean anything. It would just be something sort of fun for me to either make fun of or just be silly about, or be lighthearted about some way. And he just couldn't do it.
There would be that in my own thinking, this is where the males could also benefit. It just wasn't right. That was a waste. That was frivolous. That was spending gas to drive around the block again for, something.
For a stupid reason.
For a stupid reason. So I would just shut down on it and get indignant. And but that was where my thinking was, about that object, and it wasn't about my thinking anymore. My feeling wasn't coming from my thinking; it was coming from that concern or that righteous indignation, that error that she was making. And so, in the same dynamic, unraveling that has changed me, and it's helped Valda consequently too. It's the same truth, but when you misattribute the cause of your feeling to coming from somewhere other than your thinking, you're going to get into trouble, and that's where that's the leak in the boat that we can now close.
And you end up not being able to treat the person that you fell in love with, who is your partner, who you spend a good amount of time with. You end up not being able to treat them nice, and I
have constructive conversations with them, and be honest and beneficial to them. You end up shutting down, getting upset, blaming the other person, feeling guilty, feeling put upon, feeling resentful, feeling disappointed. Not
really being true to your own integrity of how the type of person you would like to be.
You have your excuse, and your excuse is just, you don't realize, but it's actually, a rotten board in the boat. It doesn't really work. You're missing. It's your own misunderstanding that's in your way.
Well, it kind of reminded me that, or I thought that, when you're feeling, absolutely right, and you're not going to go around the block or whatever. It's. I was just thinking, I bet you're not fun to be around for Valda. It's not a lot of fun to be around someone like that. And then I sheepishly came to the realization that I probably do that more than I'd care to admit. And it's so obvious.
You're not any fun to be around for yourself. Life is no fun for you, suddenly, because and you're feeling out of fun because you have a frivolous thing that you're not getting involved with. Well, that really, that affects you, but it looks like it's her fault. And so
you're sitting there and you're in the state of mind of judgment and criticism.
Yeah.
Which really doesn't feel very good.
Right.
Especially compared to love and respect.
Right. And you have no idea where that mental disturbance is actually coming from.
Yeah.
It's actually coming from my ill thought of her, not, but it's hard to see that feeling, all you're feeling, 100% of your feeling is coming from your own thinking moment to moment to moment. That's the truth.
So we don't end up, I don't feel like we work hard at it. I feel like it's been intriguing enough and successful enough for us that we just keep following in this direction. It's like, well, follow the trail, or your interest. If you want to go on a vacation, you just naturally start learning things about different areas you might want to go to. Well, I like having a successful life and a successful relationship, and I've just kept following this in this direction because I've been successful, and success feels really good inside.
We've run out of time, and I have so many more questions for you guys, and it's just absolutely flown by. I'm trying to let it run on for as long as possible. I normally tend to stop people about 5 minutes earlier than now, but I've been really enjoying this, and there's just so much truth and so much simplicity in what you are both sharing, and I can understand why you're so good at what you do and how you help so many people. If there are people listening to this who want to learn more about you, or maybe get in contact with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
I have an email, Keith Blevens, KeithBlevens @gmail.com. And we have a telephone, 360, it's in the States, 360-466-2300.
We're probably going to have a website in the next 3 months or something like that.
Yeah, we're going to have a website finally. We've never had one before, but threeprinciplesparadigm.com will be the website. So any one of those should work.
And you have to get in touch with Keith to get in touch with me.
Yeah.
Keith's the gatekeeper.
I said, I'm not kidding, So that's just the way we have it set up in our relationship. So that's what it is. Hey, it was nice to talk with you.
Thank you so much for this time.
Well, thank you both. And I just want to I'm going to be totally biased here, but I would say that if you are interested in, taking your understanding further, whether for your relationship or anything else, Keith and Valda, I would highly, highly recommend. And they have coached many of my family and friends who I've personally recommended. So real pleasure having you both on the show. Really highly respect both what you both do, and have been such a huge influence for myself as well. If anyone wants to find out about me, they can do so as usual via my website, which is Ankush Jain, ANKUSHJAIN.co.uk. And from there, you've got a contact me page and links to all of my social media. Thanks again, Keith and Valda. It's been great having you on the show, and I will virtually meet the listeners next time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Relationship Series podcast. If you want to hear more, you can click the subscribe button below. You can share this and impact someone else who can benefit, or you can like it and encourage others to listen. Also, it'd be great if you leave me a comment below, as I always love hearing from listeners, and I want to keep creating great content for you. Thanks for listening.